Mario Kart Wii. A true classic in and of itself, and one of the most popular entries in the Mario Kart series. This entry is commonly said to have one of, if not the best brand new selections of tracks in any Mario Kart game. With fan favorites such as Coconut Mall, DK Summit, Rainbow Road, and Dry Dry Ruins. And in this video, instead of just simply ranking all the Nitro tracks, we're going to go through each and every one of them in order of the cups, and determine what is definitively the best Mario Kart Wii track. Now, there are a few specific things I'm going to be looking for in tracks in order to determine if I think they're special or not. The first is the theme. The theme of a track is incredibly important, and is probably the first thing you're going to think of when the track is mentioned. For example, when I mention Coconut Mall, you're going to first think of its theme, that being a mall. Another thing I'm going to be looking at is the layout. Track layout is important because if the layout is boring and if there aren't any fun jumps to do, the track overall is going to suffer because of it. And the last big thing I'm going to be looking at are the shortcuts. Creative shortcuts are a key factor into making a Mario Kart track enjoyable because it makes the art of catching back up that much more fun. But with all that out of the way, let's figure out the best Mario Kart Wii track. Starting off with the Mushroom Cup, we have Luigi's Circuit. This track is incredibly basic, hence it being the very first course of the game. Luigi's Circuit is meant to just introduce the player to the game's controls, how the items work, and overall serve as a basic tutorial level. The layout is a layout. However, I will give this track some points for two pretty fun shortcuts to pull off. Those being the ramp cut here and the sand cut here. The ramp is just fun to jump off of, and the sand cut is interesting because it actually requires a little bit of skill and precision in order to not crash in the pipes, and makes pulling it off pretty satisfying. In the end, Luigi's Circuit obviously was never a real contender for the best track, so I don't think there's much sense giving it much attention. The same can probably also be said for the next course in the Mushroom Cup, Moo Moo Meadows. While not as basic as Luigi's Circuit layout-wise, this track also doesn't do anything too crazy. A lot of the reason this track is regarded so highly in the first place is because its Mario Kart 8 remake is absolutely stunning graphically, and a big step up from what was a pretty visually dull track. Theming wise though, I like it. The farm theme is cool, however, it's been done before. And very similarly by Moo Moo Farm from Mario Kart 64. Not only are the names similar, but so is the theme and color scheme. I will give this track props though for being a very good evolution of Moo Moo Farm's ideas, and those annoying ass cows that you'd always crash into are a pretty unique obstacle. So while it's not as bland and boring as Luigi's Circuit, Moo Moo Meadows also isn't peak track material unfortunately. Moving into a bit more of an interesting track, we have Mushroom Gorge. This track has a much bigger scale and scope than Moo Moo Meadows and Luigi's Circuit. The layout has some branching paths, although I have no idea why you would take this route here when the mushrooms are just so much more fun to bounce off of. Speaking of the mushrooms though, the theming of this track is great. I love how it's themed almost entirely around the mushrooms, and its main gimmick is that you can jump and bounce off of them to gain height and speed. I absolutely love the cave section you go through at the end too. The crystals lighting it up make it pretty nice to look at while you're driving through it. The best and worst thing this track has going for it though is the shortcuts. While there aren't any real intentional shortcuts to help you improve your time in time trials or catch up in a losing race, there is one unintentional shortcut in the form of the famous Mushroom Gorge gap jump. This jump is tricky to pull off, but incredibly satisfying to do, and cuts off a sizable chunk of the track. The music here is also very iconic, and you can't go wrong with it. Overall, Mushroom Gorge is a great course with a lot going for it. If we're talking courses with a big scale though, just look at the final course of the Mushroom Cup, Toad's Factory. This is one of the only tracks in Mario Kart Wii that's never been remade, and it's honestly a big shame. The grand scale of it literally being a factory, the abundant amount of unique set pieces it has, and the creative layout of the track make it one you'll definitely remember. I absolutely love the atmosphere of this course. The way the music changes depending on what part of the factory you're in is such a great way to immerse players in the environment of it. The creative use of the conveyor belts and giant moving bulldozer set pieces are also a really neat touch. The only unfortunate part of this track though, and the main thing that drags it down a bit for me, is the lack of any shortcuts at all. I feel like this theme and just the layout of the track already had so many opportunities for interesting shortcuts that could have made great use of the factory setting. And it's honestly disappointing that there's just nothing there in that department. Overall though, while all the amazing aspects of Toad Factory prevent this one hiccup from bogging it down a lot for me, I really wish they would have done something about the shortcuts. And I would love to see some integrated into a remake of this course in a future game. On to the next cup though, we have the Flower Cup. And starting off this cup is Mario Circuit. Mario Circuits are a staple of every Mario Kart. And in this game, it's actually one of the better renditions of the course. Obviously, right off the bat, one of the biggest red flags I notice in this course is the layout. This figure 8 shape is so overdone in Mario Kart, and I wish they could have done something a bit more interesting here. Other than that though, while the setting is pretty basic, the amount of detail here makes up for it quite a bit. I love all the signs with the various 8-bit Marios on them, and the Toad Town accompanied with Peach's Castle do a really good job at setting a nice atmosphere. Shortcuts wise though, this is where the track really steps up. This sand section is not only a blast to boost through and trick off this ramp, but also is incredibly satisfying to pull off perfectly and get a good line going into the tunnel. The ending area with the Goombas going up the hill is also fun to shroom through and catch up to the pack. Along with that, I really appreciate the high risk, high reward decision with the chain chomp here. You could be safe and take the outside to avoid getting absolutely pummeled by the chain chomp, but then you'd be taking a bad line and run the risk of falling behind. Whereas if you take the inside, you're on the faster route, but are in deep danger of the chain chomp. It's a great way to add some level of skill to an otherwise beginner track. Overall, a pretty fun course. Onto probably the most famous Mario Kart Wii course, and probably the most iconic course in the entire series, we have Coconut Mall. Right off the bat, Coconut Mall gets big points for its absolutely amazing setting, that being a shopping mall. The scale of this mall is pretty huge, and the insane attention to detail with all the shops and mall set pieces do a stellar job at making this feel somewhat like an actual mall. The different paths you can take also do a good job at furthering that sentiment as well. One of the best things this track does though, is how it incorporates actual mall elements like escalators and turns them into extremely creative set pieces that can actually serve as obstacles. You literally have to choose the right escalator or you run the risk of being slowed down a ton, which is an amazing integration of a thing you'd actually see in a mall and doesn't feel like something shoehorned in for a racetrack. Same goes for the cars at the end of the course. They're another super creative set piece that serves as a genuinely challenging obstacle at times. And they also have Miis from your Wii driving the cars. In the end, if I really had to find a big nitpick in this course, it would be that there's only one shortcut. But honestly, with all the cool stuff this track does, the lack of shortcuts doesn't matter all that too much to me. I'll take driving through a mall with its banger of a song playing over cool shortcuts any day of the week. Moving on, we have DK Summit. Now, while this course has an incredibly cool theme, that being its snowy ski mountain theme, its general vibe and even name have a striking resemblance to the course DK Pass from Mario Kart DS. Another snowy mountain course that has you climbing and descending down a mountain. Similar to how I said Moo Moo Meadows is a great evolution of Moo Moo Farm, I feel the same about DK Summit to DK Pass. This course takes the general idea of DK Pass, puts a spin on it, and takes it to a much larger scale. I absolutely love the half pipes and jumps all throughout the track, and I especially adore the ending section with the skiing Shy Guys as obstacles and the walls lined with half pipes. This course also has a very cool shortcut in the form of the DK Summit gap jump, just like the Mushroom Gorge gap jump. This trick is pretty hard to pull off, but again, incredibly satisfying, and adds a lot to the course for me. DK Summit has a ton of replayability and is always a blast to run through. Last up for the Flower Cup is Wario's Gold Mine. One of the best things I can say about this course is that it literally feels like a roller coaster ride. Not only due to the fact that most of the course you're driving on minecart tracks, but just because of all the jumps and hills it has. The theming here is on point with the Gold Mine and Ravine City theme it has going on. And all the washed up colors and smoggy atmosphere really gives it that Wario feel. The difficulty in the track design is also something that makes this course fun, as it feels great to understand it over time and go an entire race without falling off. The minecart shortcut that has you risk potentially getting hit by an oncoming minecart is a good high risk, high reward cut, but I think there's honestly some potential for some much more interesting and risky shortcuts. I mean, just look at all the pipes here. Imagine if one of them was blowing air or smoke that was strong enough to pick up your cart and allowed you to cut off a sizable chunk of the track. It would fit in well with the difficult nature of the level and be so satisfying to nail correctly. Besides that though, Wario's Gold Mine is incredible. Its unique theme combined with its roller coaster feeling layout makes it truly memorable. And with half of the tracks and cups out of the way, that brings us to the Star Cup, which starts off with Daisy Circuit. Daisy Circuit is honestly one of the best circuit tracks in the entire Mario Kart series. First off, its sunset setting makes it look absolutely beautiful. There's not many Mario Kart tracks, let alone any other circuit tracks that take place at this time of day. Its layout is very unique. I love the statues of Luigi and Daisy that you drive past, and overall, this track is very fun to drive around. But while this course nails the atmosphere and layout, it's severely lacking in any fun set pieces integrated into the track. I mean, sure, the Luigi and Daisy statues are cool, but they don't add much to the course gameplay-wise. Along with that, apart from this shortcut that honestly is just a separate path given how easy it is to access it, there's no big ways to catch back up in style here, and that's honestly pretty disappointing. So while this track nails its looks and vibes, its gameplay is rather simple and makes it not that fun to race through after you've seen everything it has to offer. But while Daisy Circuit may fall flat in some aspects, Koopa Cape absolutely doesn't. This course has so much going on. The setting is super pretty, and I love all the twists and turns of its layout. The Rapids section is an absolute joy to drive on, and I adore how the music changes when you're at different points of the course. The dynamic music adds so much to the atmosphere of an already incredibly well-designed course, and does a great job at immersing you in it. My favorite part of this course, though, has to be the underwater section. Diving headfirst into this pipe as it makes the iconic pipe suck sound is so cool. And I love Wii's version of Koopa Cape specifically, because instead of having you actually submerged under the water like in 7 and 8's version of the track, you're encased in this glass tube, and I think the aesthetic of this is much cooler than just driving in the water. Gameplay wise too, I also prefer the encased feel, as it lets the rapids from the river continue inside the pipe, and if you're feeling risky, you can ride the rapids to go faster, but run the risk of being caught off guard and zapped by the spinning electrical bars. The shortcut at the end with the running water is also so fun to pull off, as usually attempting to take the inside of the running water results in you getting washed away. There is a lot this track does right. It nails so much. But peak track design in the Star Cup doesn't stop with Koopa Cape. Just look at Maple Treeway. From the very moment you see this track, it's already doing a stellar job achieving that autumn look. There aren't many Mario Kart tracks I can think of that do color as well as Maple Treeway. And even though Mario Kart Wii isn't the most graphically impressive game out there, this track still looks totally beautiful. And in terms of its gameplay, its layout and design make it super enjoyable to race on. The giant wigglers are such cute little obstacles, even if they are relatively easy to avoid. And while nostalgia is certainly not a factor in determining the best track, for some odd reason I can't put my finger on, Maple Treeway just has this nostalgic feeling to it. Overall, an amazing track. And to end off the Star Cup, we have Grumble Volcano. This track has a really unique gimmick in the fact that it slowly falls apart with each lap. This makes the track get progressively more difficult as the race goes on, and I really like that. Theming wise, a volcano-themed Mario Kart course is a very creative idea, and honestly is executed pretty well here. The lava surrounding the course and the ominous purple and red sky give Grumble Volcano a very warm feeling, and makes it nice to look at. I prefer the color scheme and radiance here a lot more than 8's rendition of this course, because this type of aesthetic goes super well with Mario Kart Wii's art style. Other than the Ultra Shortcut, which I'm definitely not counting, I wish there were more shortcut options here. The most you have is using the off-road to cut a bit of the course off, but even then, by the second or third lap, most of that off-road is gone. Regardless of that though, this is still a really solid track. Finally though, we have the last Nitro Cup of Mario Kart Wii, the Special Cup. And kicking things off here is Dry Ruins. I've never been a big fan of desert tracks in Mario Kart, but this and Calamari Desert are the only exceptions. With Dry Ruins, it doesn't just feel like Nintendo needed a desert track, but rather had an actual good idea for one and executed it amazingly. The layout of this track makes it so fun to drive on. I especially love the curvature of the track at the end, or the shortcut you can take there. The ruins themselves, though, are the thing that make this course interesting. The half pipes are fun to go off of, and if you have an inside drifting bike, nailing this sharp turn feels so good. And the fact that the sand in the center of this room in the ruins fills up with each lap is also a great touch. This track has a lot of things going for it, and is a stark contrast to the other Dry course in Mario Kart, Dry Desert, which is just empty. I really wish we saw this course as a surprise in the Booster Course Pass. Speaking of surprises in the Booster Course Pass though, we have Moonview Highway. I've always advocated for this track whenever people hate on it, and I absolutely love seeing it in Mario Kart 8, but if I have to put away personal preference and be completely honest, this track doesn't have much going for it. Theming and aesthetically wise, this course is incredible. It does everything Toad's Turnpike from Mario Kart 64 did right, and then some. They really captured the atmosphere of a busy nighttime highway in a big city. Layout-wise though, is where this track starts to falter. Although it's not really like they could have done much here. Moonview Highway does what it sets out to achieve with its theme, and in order to be that highway city track, it needed that simpleness. The little jump shortcut you can do here is great, but it doesn't add all that much to it. I would never call this course bad because I do love its atmosphere, but when comparing it with other courses in the game, it certainly can't compete. One track that can compete though is Bowser's Castle. Wii's rendition of this iconic Mario Kart staple is my absolute favorite version of it. Almost everything you can ask for is here. It's got incredible music, insanely creative set pieces, so much variety, and there is no part of this course where it feels empty. Even the ending, where you'd expect it to just be a simple road to the finish line, is littered with lava geysers, and I love it. The variety in this course makes it super replayable, and the atmosphere and music always gets me so immersed in the track. That giant Mecha Bowser that shoots fireballs at you is also just like the coolest thing. Nintendo went all out with this Bowser's Castle. The scale, the atmosphere, the design, it's amazing. If anything, I wish they could have integrated some fun shortcuts, but even then, with all it's got going on, I don't think it needs any. This is truly an incredible Mario Kart course. And with all those courses out of the way, that leaves only one left. Rainbow Road. And what a Rainbow Road this is! It takes heavy Super Mario Galaxy inspiration with the star bits floating around the course and the musical references in the song, but it's also just got a great layout. This is one of the hardest courses in the entire Mario Kart series, especially if you're playing as a lightweight character that can just get absolutely annihilated by a heavy character hitting you off the track. I feel like there isn't much to gush about with the theme other than the Mario Galaxy references, as a lot of Rainbow Roads already take place in space. But I really like the visual of the Earth below the course, and how if you fall off you start to burn up as you enter Earth's atmosphere. As a Rainbow Road, Wii's rendition does a lot right. It's equally fun and difficult, and a super memorable course that I was so glad to see return in 8 Deluxe. And so, with every Nitro course out of the way, what is the best Mario Kart Wii track? To me, it comes down to 3 contenders: Coconut Mall, Koopa Cape, and Bowser's Castle. These 3 tracks either check all the boxes I was looking for, or check most of them so well that faltering on one aspect doesn't really matter when it does the others so incredibly well. Picking between the 3 of these is very difficult, as I feel it could be argued any one of them is the best. But if I'm being completely honest, and looking at what I believe is the absolute definitive track in the game, it has to be Koopa Cape. This course just does everything right. Its layout is fun to drive on and unique, the theme isn't overdone and an actual good idea, driving on it is a blast, the dynamic music immerses you, and the shortcuts are satisfying as hell to pull off. Bowser's Castle was a close second because while it has the insane amount of variety I love Koopa Cape for, with it arguably having more variety in its sections, Koopa Cape got the edge in the end due to its various shortcuts and the open track design in the rapid section. And Coconut Mall, while scoring 3rd place here, is still an absolutely stellar track, with the same variety, great theming, and fun gameplay I love the other 2 for. But what do you think? Do you agree with this, or do you think I'm absolutely insane for not saying Luigi Circuit is the best? Leave a comment down below. I'm genuinely curious if people feel the same way, or have a completely different answer. With that though, thanks for watching, and subscribe if you feel like it.